Just down into single figures in some eastern parts, with a few mist and fog patches that will burn away quickly during the morning. But the main feature, we've got this cloud and rain moving in from the west, a strong southerly breeze picking up through the Irish Sea, and we'll start to see heavy rain arriving from early afternoon, spreading into particularly parts of southwest Scotland. Temperatures will be at the best mid to high teens under this cloud and rain and feeling quite chilly. Warm still though in the southeast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GBNews Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am, having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 1 o'clock on Sunday the 18th of August, and this is the weekend, literally the weekend on GB News. Hope you're having a wonderful time out there. Now, we've got an amazing show for you with some great guests. Extreme misogyny will be treated as terrorism for the first time under plans to combat the radicalisation of young men online, with the government aiming to tackle violence against women and girls in the same way as Islamist and far-right extremism. We'll have all the latest on that story. And the scowl of the migrant crisis facing the new Labour government has been laid bare as GB News confirms that more than 19,000 small boat migrants have now crossed the English Channel this year. Just what can Starmer do to stop those boats? And as the Sussexes finish in a semi-royal tour of Colombia, locals say Prince Harry should apologise for slavery. Do they have a point, though? I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. But my favourite bit of this show is chatting to you lot out there. It really is. And I know I never have time to read them all, but please do send them in. It's really easy to join in our conversation. Let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today, or anything you want to have a chat about, basically. Very simple. Go to gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our chat. But before we do that, let me introduce the lovely panel I have for you today. And we're spoilt for choice today. We have former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire, journalist Claire Muldoon, and we also have a young man with us, Benedict Spence, as well. So we have three lucky people for you to talk to, and you know how to do that, don't you? But first, let's get the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you. 2 minutes past one, the top story this lunchtime. It is understood dozens of people have been killed in Israeli airstrikes in both Gaza and Lebanon. Iran-backed Hezbollah has continued firing rockets, now around 55, we believe, in retaliation. Iran-backed Hezbollah has continued that attack in response as the Israeli Prime Minister has expressed cautious optimism about a ceasefire deal with Hamas, including for the release of hostages. The militant group, who aren't present for those talks, say that the claim is there's been no progress in reaching a deal. Meanwhile, President Biden claims he is remaining optimistic that an agreement is closer than ever. There are concerns that the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is deteriorating after a drone strike. It caused an explosion just outside the site's protected area. Although no casualties have been reported at this stage, the facility, the largest of its kind in Europe, has been occupied by Russian soldiers since early in the war. It comes as Ukraine's incursion continues into Russian territory, and earlier today, former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major General Chip Chapman, told us British-donated equipment is helping Ukraine to push back Vladimir Putin.
One of the things that the offensive does is establish momentum and initiative, and gives more willingness to continue to support Ukraine, because what you can say previously is that they were losing slowly, and initially the provision of support equalised the battlefield, and now at least the momentum and initiative is with them in a tactical sense.
Chip Chapman there speaking to us this morning. Well, in other news, official figures have revealed almost 500 people crossed the English Channel yesterday in at least 9 small boats. They made that journey following 2 days of no reported migrant arrivals, and it brings the total number of migrants reaching UK waters so far this year to now 19,000. More than 5,000 of those have arrived in Britain since Labour came into power on the 4th of July. The Home Office insists it is creating a new border security command to tackle the problem. The Home Secretary has announced a new crackdown on extremism, pledging to tackle harmful ideologies and address gaps in current policies. The Home Office is launching a rapid sprint to analyse and recommend strategies for countering extremist threats, including rising radicalisation among young people online. That initiative follows violent riots across England in recent weeks after the Southport stabbings, with over 460 people so far appearing in court, including more than 70 minors. Vet Cooper says the new approach will target a spectrum of extremist ideologies. A don't swim alert has been issued for a popular Devon seaside town because of a sewage leak there. South West Water says it can't keep up with the spill caused by a burst pipe at a nearby pumping station in Exmouth. It's apologised and insists engineers are working round the clock to fix the problem. It comes after the regulator Ofwat announced water bills will rise by an average of £94 over 5 years to cover the cost of upgrading infrastructure. It was also revealed that 3 water companies, though not including South West Water, are facing a combined fine of £168 million for failings, including over sewage treatment. Well, the King is set to cut Prince Andrew's security team, according to reports out today. The privately funded protection provided by King Charles after the Duke of York lost his police security in 2022 will end in November, we understand, and sources suggest the move indicates the Duke may also be forced to leave the Royal Lodge, with pressure mounting amid renewed scrutiny to his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Earlier this year, Andrew refused to move to Frogmore Cottage, despite facing steep security costs. The European Space Agency's JUICE spacecraft will perform a world-first lunar Earth flyby on Monday night, marking a critical point in its journey to Jupiter. The manoeuvre will use the moon's gravity and then Earth's as natural brakes before slingshotting JUICE towards Venus, saving significant fuel. It's high risk, though, guided by specialist flight controllers here on Earth that could determine the mission's success, but they say even a minor error would potentially end that mission. JUICE, of course, equipped with UK-developed instruments, is on a 4.1 billion-mile trip to explore Jupiter's moons for signs of life. And finally, before we head back to dawn, some sport for you. Keely Hodgkinson is eyeing history after clinching gold in the 800 metres at the Paris Olympics, with her sights now set on smashing the 40-year-old world record. The 22-year-old says her recent performance in London, where she ran just less than a second over that record, has fuelled her confidence. She's not slowing down either. Hodgkinson will compete until September, chasing a third Diamond League title before taking a much-needed break.
It's been a long time before anyone's even hit the 53, seconds. So I'd love to do that. I think I can. I now believe I can do that, and I think now with the science that we have in the sport and the technology that we have that's up and coming, I think we should welcome it, and that's what's helping us get near to these records. And yeah, I'm all for it. So I'd love to see how close I can get to it.
And if she ever does beat that world record, GB News will be where you'll hear it first. Those are the latest headlines. For now, I'm Sam Francis, back with you in just over half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Do you think that logo looks like a dinner plate, or is that just me? I think it looks like a plate, but it is Sunday lunchtime. Hope you're having a gorgeous time out there. Now, let's get straight into today's story, shall we? Big story broken today. Extreme misogyny will be treated as terrorism for the first time under government plans to combat the radicalisation of young men online. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has ordered a review of Britain's counter-extremism strategy with the aim of tackling violence against women and girls in the same way as Islamist and far-right extremism is tackled. Joining me now from outside the Home Office is a GB News reporter, the wonderful Ray Addison, to bring us up to date on this story and what it actually means. Ray, lovely to see you. OK, this is the front page of the Sunday Telegraph today. Huge story. What does it actually mean?
Well, a huge response from our listeners and our viewers to this story, Dawn. A lot of concern about who defines what classes as misogyny and who defines also what classes as extreme. We have seen those allegations in recent weeks about the sort of allegations of a two-tier policy depending upon what your view might be. And this seems to have sort of added a little bit of fuel to that fire. So this is the Labour government. They're looking at these plans to treat what they describe as extreme misogyny as a form of terrorism, with the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper ordering a review of the counter-terrorism strategy to crack down on what she's calling hateful beliefs. Now, the Home Office says that it will be looking at both the rise of extreme Islamist and far-right views here in the United Kingdom, but, and this is kind of the key bit and where it plays into this misogyny line, they're going to be looking at wider ideological trends as well, including misogyny, to address violence against women and girls. Now, Cooper has said that the government has failed to address the rise in extremism in recent years. She says we've seen the number of young people radicalised online grow, and she wants to use this review that she's putting in place to identify gaps in current legislation and presumably add more laws and have more laws in place so that the police could act swiftly if they consider they've come across something online or in the streets, comments made that could be countered as extreme misogyny. Now, when it comes to misogyny, the police have commented on this before. They've warned that online influencers such as Andrew Tate could radicalise young men and boys. I'm sure obviously he would disagree with that, but they say it could be taking place in the same way that terrorists attract and draw in and radicalise radicalise their own followers too. Now, already there are several extremism categories ranked by the Home Office behind me, and that includes the term incel, or involuntary celibate. Now, these are men who blame women for their lack of sexual opportunities, and that is already classified by the Home Office as an extreme view. So under these proposals, it wouldn't just be a case of policing the internet, or the police policing the internet. Teachers as well could be legally required to refer pupils in their school that they suspect of extreme misogyny to the government's organisation Prevent, that of course being the UK government's counter-terrorism programme, which would normally be dealing with far-right and Islamist views as well. So it's caused a lot of conversation, as I said at the beginning, people just asking who really decides which views are hateful, and some people saying that this use of these organisations could just devalue the threat of terrorism.
Thank you very much, Ray. It's Ray Addison outside the Home Office for us with the news that's broken today that extreme misogyny will now be treated as terrorism. So many questions, I'm sure you have as well. I don't even know where to begin. Joining me, so I'm going to go to my panel, basically. Joining me now is journalist Benedict Spence and my panel, former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and journalist Claire Muldoon. Benedict, I am going to come to you first as the man on the panel. Look, we've seen horrific examples of violence against women and girls recently, with the 3 little girls killed in Southport, the young Dutch tourist knifed in Leicester Square. We know that a woman is killed by a man on average every 3 days in the UK, normally by a man she knows. Yeah. So there's no denying something needs to be done, but is this the way to go about it?
I suspect probably, first and foremost, I'd say that this is a headline-grabbing opportunity for the government to say we're going to get tough on this issue, because there's no doubt, as you say, actually, there is an epidemic of violence against women and girls in this country. Whether or not you can classify it as terrorism is another thing, because, of course, I think terrorism is far more ideological in its nature. And the majority, well, this is the thing, I suppose, the majority of incidents of domestic violence, I think, would almost certainly fall under the sort of the umbrella of misogyny. But that's not the same as saying that people are motivated by some sort of ideology. It's also far, far more prevalent than Islamism or far-right activity. So I don't quite see how it is that you're going to be able to sort of give counter-terrorism units the same sort of resources and expect them to deal with it.
Against things like domestic violence and rape and sex crime. We have laws against what you could say extreme misogyny.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the incel phenomenon is it's a difficult thing to quantify, because we've not actually had an instance of sort of, you know, massive incel-based terrorist activity or something in this country. We've not even had it really in other countries, even though it's far more prevalent in other countries, whereas we have had terrorist incidents to do with the far right or Irish republicanism or whatever it is you want to talk about. I think fundamentally you'd do far better addressing the issue of violence against women and girls if you were to treat it as it is, which is ultimately a crisis of violence among men. The other side of that coin, I think, is also where you see suicide amongst men, is that basically there are lots of men who are very angry, very upset, very disillusioned with life, and they vent their frustrations in all manner of different directions. Now, to highlight the examples of the recent stabbings, I think is potentially a dangerous one, because we don't yet know what the motivations were. That's not been made apparent. And when it comes to issues like that, it can be something like radicalisation. It can also be something like severely bad mental health, which actually does
we
not
don't know. It was just examples, recent examples.
And it's more to do with, it's more to do in those cases of going after a vulnerable and available person who will more often than not tend to be female and young than male. But I think looking at radicalisation from a young age, what falls under the remit of misogyny, I think that's very difficult to quantify. I think very quickly you'll see mission creep. I think, you know, things that might just be passed off as sort of boyish sexism might end up being referred to Prevent when they don't need to be. And what I would say is shaming and bullying young boys at a formative stage in their life will have the opposite effect of de-radicalising them, especially if it's done by a woman, an older woman, whom most teachers and most social workers tend to be. Yeah. I don't see that that would be a beneficial thing at all. I think what is needed is stronger male role models and a better role for particularly disadvantaged young boys and men in society. That, I think, is far better than saying, oh, these people are extremists and need to be dealt with harshly.
Claire, I noticed you nodding along with that. I mean, you are a mum, you have sons.
Yeah.
1 son and 3 girls, and my son's the youngest. And it is incredibly important that young men do have role models. I was a single mother bringing up all 4 children, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And I think that, although the girls would say Tom's my favourite, he's not. He's gorgeous. I love him. Love them all. But it's very, very important that males in particular do have strong role models. And I do fear that this is going to run into problems of definition of misogyny. And I don't think we've got the manpower and the police power to police it either. I think people would far rather that police were up to date with crimes as they are reported now, than having a CPS when it was under Starmer, rape convictions actually went down. So, and then we've got the trans issue as well. I mean, Labour barely know if a woman can be a biological woman or not. I mean, we've got major issues here with this. I think it is a headline-grabbing account from Yvette Cooper, who I think has hit the, running track running. I'm going to take my hat off to her. Yesterday, she introduced a new bill, hopefully, to get young lads together. I mean, this is all on the back of other stuff. So she's making some really positive jumps and leaps, but I'm afraid in the rollout, I'm quite sceptical. What is women's bad driving? Making a comment about that. Where is the line, you see, between humour and serious fact?
This is the problem I'm having here with it. It's Scarlett, coming to you now. It's people who have hateful beliefs. So are the government now going to be responsible for telling us what to think?
Well, I mean, that's the problem with Prevent, isn't it?
Prevent doesn't actually prevent anything.
Prevent is not fit for purpose.
Well, explain what Prevent is, because a lot of people won't know what it is.
Well, OK, so Prevent is something that is supposed to get radicalism at its roots, so it's looking particularly at young people. And when we say young, we're talking right down to primary school age.
Yes.
It's crazy, right? It is crazy, and it's accusing young Muslim boys of primary school age of radicalism when they're looking for things, and ditto far right, and it's going to be the same. So, I mean, what I do know is that they're looking that the top people in counter-terrorism say that Prevent is not fit for purpose, and actually the Home Office are looking to completely redo it.
Yeah, an independent review of Prevent earlier this year proved it wasn't fit for purpose.
It's not that misogyny. I mean, I agree with Benedict. Is that I think this is about headlines rather than what's underneath. That actually the Mark Rowley, the head of the Metropolitan Police, says, there is a crisis of violence against women and girls, and he's absolutely right, and we have to do something about it. Doing something about it isn't about, and quite clearly, if a woman is killed every 3 days, and as you say, normally by somebody they know. I mean, we're not talking normally about these stalkers and people.
No.
We're talking about a husband. Ex-husband, ex-partner, those sort of people. There is a real problem in schools, actually, for women teachers, because people like Andrew Tate are influencing them so that boys aren't listening. And actually, what we need to do is we need to look at the culture, so that Benedict's right. I mean, if somebody like me started telling off a young man or a 15-year-old boy, I have to say, I did take on 10 of them in a railway carriage and told them I was not going to listen to them talking to me about respect when they were playing their music so loudly.
What reaction did you get, Scarlett?
I got an apology. I did. I really pushed it on. I said, I'm going through chemotherapy at the moment. I need peace. I'm going somewhere. And actually, it was mixed.
Yeah.
It was mixed, and they were about 18, and it worked. I mean, so sometimes boring old ladies can do quite a lot. But I do. I think to say it's serious. I mean, actually, the one thing Benedict is wrong is there was an incident in Plymouth with an incel who first of all killed his mother and then went and killed whoever else was. I mean, incel, which is involuntary celibates because men do believe that basically women are there to have sex with them, and that is our major role. I mean, that is a really worrying thing, and it's mostly in America. I absolutely agree.
But there's something else about the incel phenomenon that often gets missed in all of this, and this is the high prevalence of autism amongst people who actually fall into this remit. They are people who are very vulnerable already and could fall into any sorts of things and have troubles to begin with. I don't actually see what's beneficial about saying to somebody who is already at a massive disadvantage socially, you are fundamentally wrong. You've got this awful ideology and you are effectively wicked because we are branding you with that terrorism or extremist label. People like that, actually, I think they need early intervention, but, putting labels on them and that sort of thing, I think has the opposite effect, especially with somebody who is, again, neurologically diverse, as they say, who is more likely to double down.
I think you're right. I think early intervention doesn't have to be naming and shaming.
Yeah.
I mean, early intervention is saying, this is a real problem. How do we sort it out? And actually, that's what should be done with the far right, and that's what should be...
Early intervention for young lads should be keeping away from gaming and keeping away from porn.
It's easier said than done.
Take the smartphones away, actually, halfway there.
That's what I did in my house.
It's, again, though, I think that we do always need to remember, very important, strong male role models who, I'm not saying that it's going to solve everything, but in lots of instances where you'll also see violence later on down the line, it's because of a lack of that. And there are other things as well. Alcoholism in parents plays a very large part.
Addiction.
Something else that we have to say is some migrant communities, not all, have very different views on what a woman's role is, and they sometimes pass that down to their children. That often doesn't get picked up because of squeamishness about not wanting to appear culturally insensitive. There are many different reasons why people end up becoming violent towards women and girls. There is no sort of blanket approach to this, but what I would say is, I'll go back to it, shaming people from an early age, that is not going to end particularly well.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time for this particular section, but we are coming back.
Is it wine time?
Pardon?
Is it wine time now?
I've been whining for
we're setting a good example on this programme, aren't we? Right, OK, but we are coming back to that debate because it's very important. Honestly, I can't get the staff here. But we are coming back to this subject. It is very important, obviously. And for all the best analysis and opinion on that story and so many more, please do go to our website, which is GBNews. I'm Dawn Neeson, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Should Prince Harry apologise for slavery? That's what the Colombians are calling for as the Sussexes wrap up their so-called royal tour, inverted commas. I'll be getting the thoughts of a royal expert on that. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon. Don't go too far.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You'll relate to this one. We've all been there, haven't we? Tensions high in the car as you head off on the latest adventure or holiday during the summer break.
Now, with the average family set to spend about 3.5 hours a week together in the car driving on the roads during the holidays, new research has shown that our relationships could be tested to the limit.
Yes, figures show that 21% are having arguments for simple things like the driver going the wrong way, which we were saying is not actually very simple. That's very serious.
I was going to say that. I'm surprised it's just 21%. Yeah. If I was going the wrong way down the road,
you'd know about
you'd hear from me.
A further 20% squabbling over how their partner drives, yes, and 25% admitting to being more prone to rowing when their kids are misbehaving. It's a lot to deal with, isn't it?
Fair enough.
Well, we're joined now by dating and relationship coach and author Persia Lawson. Good to see you this morning, Persia. What is it about being in a car that just makes things so tense?
Well, I think it's probably quite obvious, isn't it? It's the fact that we are in a confined space, we can't go anywhere, and it can just really create so much tension and stress, especially if you and your other half or a family member, whoever you're in the car with, are going through a little bit of a tricky time. And if it's really hot outside, that doesn't help either. So inevitably, it creates a lot of irritation and bickering, I would say, from my experience.
And what is it about children? If you add children into the mix, it just makes things very, very difficult, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of, are we there yet?
Yeah.
Kicking the back seat and just squabbles, kicking the siblings. So adding children into the mix is just going to turn the heat up on that tension.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okwir, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, welcome back to the weekend. I'm Dawn Neeson and you're watching GB News, and my panel all still here with me, and I can't control them, to be honest with you, so I need your company today. Now, we're moving on from the previous story, but we will be going back to that debate, don't worry. I know lots of you want to have your say. Harry and Meghan are wrapping up their tour of Colombia, and locals have said Prince Harry should apologise for the royal family's role in slavery. Meanwhile, King Charles has axed Prince Andrew's security team, which he is privately funding. And there's a few other royal stories. There's lots of royal stories about today. So let's get to the bottom of the wall with royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliam, shall we? Hello, thank you very much for joining us, Richard. Now, shall we start with Harry? We may as well, mayn't we? Now, so he's out on this this tour of Colombia, and he's been to a free town, hasn't he, which was freed slaves built it, and there was some suggestion that he should apologise for the royal family's role in slavery and colonialism. What do we make of this one?
Well, I think that there was a call from some quarters, but the purpose of an apology, if one was offered, would be up to the government, not an individual royal, and certainly not, since he's not speaking on behalf of the government, and it's certainly not there as a senior working member of the royal family, so it would have been inappropriate. I think it was just a piece of press that, I mean, anything to do with this particular topic. And we remember the last time William and Catherine, where they visited the Caribbean, this issue or issues linked to it did overshadow the tour. So Harry and Meghan, I mean, they seem to have carried it off, given the fact that the whole purpose was to highlight, firstly, their international profile, and secondly, that of Colombia. I would say, given the fact it was also the theme of cyberbullying, which is very significant, I would say that the purpose of the tour was very broadly what had been hoped, although it was somewhat overshadowed by them losing their chief executive officer just before it started.
Indeed. And we've obviously discussed the security aspects at length, the fact that they feel fairly safe going to Colombia, but they're a bit terrified about going to Windsor. But also, talking of Windsor, the other story I wanted to talk to you about, Richard, is King Charles was firing Prince Andrew's 10-man private security team. What do you make of this one?
Well, if true, it is a very clear indication that his tenure at Royal Lodge may well be limited. I mean, the problem is he's there on long lease, so getting rid of him isn't particularly easy. He would have to go of his own volition, and that would be because he couldn't afford repairs. But on the other hand, he would be compensated for those repairs and also the money that he'd invested in it. And it is a story that, I mean, Andrew is, of course, embarrassment to the royal family. There's no doubt there's no way back for him, and the fact he's occupying such a large property is undoubtedly embarrassing to the king. Equally, reports say that he's joining the royal family at Balmoral, and the other issue is that this does affect not only Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, who of course remains in intimate terms with him, living with him, but also Beatrice and Eugenie. So when this actually happens, let's just see how the story develops. There have been a lot of reports that the king is pressurising him to leave and would probably wish him to go into move into Frogmore Cottage, but it hasn't happened yet.
Interesting. I mean, they are so popular, aren't they? Richard Fitzwilliam, thank you very much for joining us and bringing up today on Planet Royal happenings. Now, let's see what my panel make of this. I'm journalist Benedict Spence, former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and journalist Claire Muldoon with me, mostly being quite well behaved for a couple of minutes at least. Claire, I'm going to come to you first because you've got that glint in your eye on this one. I mean, Harry on this royal tour, in inverted commas, people, by the way. And he visited a free town that was set up by slaves that were freed, and there was an implication that maybe he would like to apologise for things that happened several hundred years ago. What do you make? Shaking my head.
I'm shaking my head already. How on earth these two can think that going to Colombia and Bogota is safer than going to Windsor, or indeed to the UK, is beyond me for a start. And secondly, I don't think anyone should be apologising for slavery, in especially the royal family, or they're not. Are they part of the royal family? Do we even know? I mean, they're such a hybrid version of themselves. I don't think they even know their own identities. So no, I really don't think that they should, and they really ought to be. They shouldn't be being brought in to discussions about this as well. Things that happened in the history are there to prove points and show and shape the future, hopefully. We can't change the history. We can't change what happened. We can barely repair it. So why are we being held accountable for it? And why should we feel the need to apologise?
Scarlett, do you think they would?
Well, I mean, King Charles...
I do that all the time.
Has apologised, right? I mean, so he felt... I actually don't understand all these people who sort of hate Harry and Meghan but have to cover them all the time. I mean, the Daily Mail probably runs 4 stories a day online about Harry and Meghan. Each, Harry's been seen driving, Meghan's out in this dress. I mean, let's just ignore them. As far as Colombia goes, I presume they were given masses of security, whereas they're not here.
They had ballistic briefcases, which was fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, which I didn't understand at all.
No, me neither, but
I mean, I just think, I think, yeah, they can go and visit Colombia, they can go and visit anywhere. I really don't care.
Benedict, sorry, we haven't got time to come to you. I know, but...
Because I would love to talk about the role of the global cocaine trade in the slavery trade today, which is higher than it has ever been in history. I wonder what the Colombians might have to say about that, but that's perhaps for another time.
You made a very good point, very briefly there. Right, thank you very much. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show, including an experience like no other up in Edinburgh. Find out exactly what I'm talking about after your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 1:30, and the top story this hour, Israeli airstrikes on Gaza and Lebanon overnight have killed dozens of people. That's as America's top diplomat, Anthony Blinken, travels to Israel to push for a ceasefire. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, says he is cautiously optimistic about a potential deal. However, a senior Hamas representative says any deal is still way off. In Ukraine, safety at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is deteriorating, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency. An explosive detonated just outside the site's protected area, which has been occupied by Russian soldiers since the early stages of the war there. Here, official figures have shown that 9 migrant boats were brought ashore from the English Channel yesterday, carrying almost 500 people. Hundreds more have made the crossing this week, bringing the total number reaching UK waters so far this year to now 19,000. The Home Secretary is launching a major crackdown on extremism. She's vowing to close gaps that leave the UK exposed to dangerous ideologies. Following recent riots and the Southport stabbings, which killed 3 girls. And now with over 460 people in court, Yvette Cooper says the Home Office are making a rapid sprint to map out strategies to fight radicalisation. A Don't Swim alert has been issued for Exmouth Beach in Devon after South West Water admitted it was struggling to contain a sewage leak. The firm's apologised for a burst pipe and insists engineers are working round the clock to fix the problem. There are fears a new strain of Mpox is already in the UK after emerging first in Africa. The Clade 1b strain has been confirmed in Sweden and is thought to be the most dangerous found so far. Symptoms can include a fever and a painful rash, which produces blisters. And Europe's JUICE spacecraft will attempt a world first on Monday night, flying by the Moon and Earth in a daring double-gravity manoeuvre. The move will slingshot JUICE towards Jupiter, saving vital fuel for its 4.1 billion-mile mission to search for signs of life. JUICE, carrying UK-built instruments, will pass over Southeast Asia and the Pacific, offering them, sadly not us here in the UK, a rare chance to spot it. There were far too many juices in that script, I'll tell you that. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A couple of showers around today, but actually lots of sunshine, and it will be dry for much of the UK. And that's because we have high pressure over the Azores, and that'll be extending a ridge across the southern half of the UK, and that'll be acting to settle down the weather, killing off most of those showers, and it'll be a mostly fine afternoon. There will be a couple of showers around, mainly for the northwest of England and certainly for the west of Scotland, but actually lots of the UK seeing plenty of sunny spells and central parts seeing more sunshine than we saw yesterday. Further north, though, we do still have this keen westerly breeze pushing into western Scotland, and with temperatures there in the mid-teens still feeling quite chilly, but further south, 24, 25 is a top temperature and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine too. A fairly fine afternoon for much of the southern half of the UK, but that rain will continue to push into western Scotland. Some sunshine, though, across eastern Scotland, and it will be still that wind continuing on through the western coasts. Northern Ireland staying largely dry, and over the high ground of northwest England there still will be some drizzly outbreaks. But again, lots of evening sunshine for Wales and much of the south. We start to get some drizzly showers moving into the southwest later on into the evening. But for most of the country, we do have a largely clear night, and we've got lots of clear spells. Rain and drizzle beginning to move into the northwest of Scotland, and some drizzly showers moving into the southwest and parts of Wales as well. Cool, though, ahead of this cloud, temperatures down into single figures in some eastern parts, with a few mist and fog patches that will burn away quickly during the morning. But the main feature, we've got this cloud and rain moving in from the west, a strong southerly breeze picking up through the Irish Sea, and we'll start to see heavy rain arriving from early afternoon, spreading into particularly parts of southwest Scotland. Temperatures will be at the best mid to high teens under this cloud and rain and feeling quite chilly. Warm still, though, in the southeast.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. I hope you're having a fabulous Sunday out there and really having a good weekend. Now, Edinburgh's month of festivals is well underway, but what can top the spectacle of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo? Enjoying the view from Edinburgh Castle, Tony Maguire has the story.
This year, Edinburgh Castle welcomes the Royal Navy onto the Esplanade to lead more than 800 Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo performers on a journey from the sea to the spotlight. The tattoo returned in 2022, bringing fresh ideas and offering up a bold new show by way of voices. The following year, those voices told stories, and this summer, those stories speak of journeys. American Dream classics from the US Sea Service Band, fluorescent drum beats from Switzerland, and a Rajasthani piper soloing against the neon Taj Mahal before a raucous highlight rave takes the 9,000-strong party up a notch. Journeys feels more ambitious than ever before, and Tattoo Chief Executive Jason Barrett believes the culture on display here is a unique platform for international engagement.
As far as the tattoo and dealing with or working with international militaries or government or whatever the case may be, we think that is one of the strengths of the tattoo as a convening authority. We provide an engagement platform here at the tattoo, and culture can be that arm of soft power, soft diplomacy, and we like to play a part in that.
The Edinburgh Tattoo runs 25 performances over 23 nights, a test of endurance for any festival performer. But the sheer grandeur and scale of the tattoo sustains all 800 plus cast through to the very end.
So I remember learning at school Scott and the Brave for the first time, and to get to do that now, bring that back to home and play this every night here is an amazing feeling.
India is all about colours and celebration, and that's what we're trying to bring with our music here. We're super proud to be presenting our country at such a great event.
Once you're here on the stage, on the platform to perform, it's just all out.
Everything that I have heard, this is the tattoo to model after. I can tell you honestly, this place for me is magical.
It takes 12 weeks to erect the tattoo grandstand, for the cast to spend just 3 weeks delivering night after night of unforgettable performances before 10 weeks of disassembly begins. The cast have just 4 days together before taking the show in front of their first audience. And if you're thinking, well, they would never do that just for any old show, you'd be right. It's traditional, at times modern, and after voices told stories of show-stopping journeys, we'll need to wait until next summer to discover where the compass needle points our heroes. Tony Maguire, GB News, Edinburgh.
Thank you very much, Tony. Now, we were up in Edinburgh last weekend, a mate's 50th birthday, and it was amazing. It was a great atmosphere. Everyone was very happy. Even the husband, who's normally very, very grumpy, was saying, oh, people are so happy up here, because everyone was having a party. And there were loads of flags, as you've just seen in Tony's report there. Loads of flags flying, the Saltaire in particular, which got me thinking, it's an age-old conversation, isn't it? But why is it OK in Scotland to fly the national flag with pride and everyone's going, oh, it's wonderful, it's lovely. And it was lovely and wonderful, I agree. But when it comes to the English flag, you are instantly racist and far right. Now, Benedict, because you were outspoken by the ladies earlier on, I'm going to come to you first on this one.
First and foremost, I think it's because England is seen as correctly the dominant country in the Union and doesn't have a sort of a major breakaway movement within that. So the political legitimacy, therefore, that is attributed to, say, the Saltaire or as was attributed to the tricolour in Ireland back in the day, doesn't quite stand up because there isn't the sense that the English are trying to break away from anything unless it's the European Union. There is also the sense that you have in England that you don't have in Scotland, I think to the same extent, which is that the intelligentsia, the English intelligentsia, are a little bit ashamed of their own nationality. It is that they are British or indeed cosmopolitan rather than they are English, whereas it is not seen as something to be looked down on in Scotland. Now, all of this is actually largely part of a great sort of sleight of hand. The Scottish middle classes and indeed the Irish managed to do just as well out of empire as anybody in England did. That's why half the squares in London are named after Scottish and Irish landowners, because they did fantastically well after it. But as I say, this is ultimately why it is, and the assertion of English nationalism, because it's seen as sort of the assertion of the dominant over the other, is therefore perceived by the others as aggressive and by their own middle classes as slightly uncouth and unrefined, I think.
And Claire, as the Scottish voice on the panel?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Scottish people don't really have a lot to shout about now in terms of, look at the football team, look at the football team, look at their sport. You know, we're not that great on international sports arenas. And I think to fly the flag at things like the Edinburgh Festival, or indeed at any time we can, the Saltaire is a beautiful flag. It's named after St Andrew because he was crucified that way as opposed to that way like Christ. And so it's very symbolic, but ultimately the Union flag, I think, is one of the most beautiful flags in this world, and it's a sign of unity. It is the United Kingdom.
Scarlett, there's no shame in our flag, is there at all? You're very proud of the flag.
In the
St George's cross.
In the St George's flag, or even the Union flag.
Well, I think they're very different. I mean, what's interesting is when you really see the St George's flag is for football. Is when the English team is playing football. everybody has a St George's flag, and people feel very, very English. And it is really interesting, and it's completely unifying, actually. It didn't help that in the riots, a lot of thugs were wrapped up in Union flags. That it is, you know, it is frightening. But I think the good thing is the English football team.
Marvellous. OK, well, I'm not even going to go down explore the Scottish route with football anymore. Claire, stop looking at me like that. Right, so we've run out of time again, but football is coming up. Sorry, no. Actually, I've just done that bit, haven't we? I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and coming up, we are talking football. Honestly, I'm getting excited, even though we lost last night. The Premier League is back, and there's a huge clash this afternoon with Chelsea playing Man City. That's all to come after this short break.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Fatima's UK campaign, Children and Young People Matter, because I actually run a campaign, and my ministry today is about looking after children in the care system and improving their life outcomes. You know, for me, I had a difficult start to my childhood, and I will never forget it. I mean, I always say I may have left the care system, but the care system hasn't left me. And I instantly understand the importance of giving our young children and young people the opportunity to also, you know, have good life outcomes. So Fatima's UK campaign is all about that. And it's a summit next year. Eamon, I hope you're going to come.
No, I know we've talked about this before, and certainly, I mean, I believe in what you're doing. I think it's marvellous what you're doing, and that's why, you know, when you think about children, and children are so close to you, and you look at that horror that happened in Southport yesterday, I mean, things like that
exactly.
Will really hit home hard.
Well, children are the innocent ones, aren't they, Eamon? And this is what we look at when you think they're the future. We've got to start to put them back at the top. And it's a travesty when we see things like that, you know, Omar, that happen. You know, children are the ones that are impacted. And, you know, it's, for me, you know, really important to be able to do the best we can and looking after their future. And so hopefully, you know, I'm going to the Pyrenees in September, Eamon. That's my next challenge, the Bay of Biscay, from France to Spain and back. And hopefully people can go online, fatimascampaign.com, and give generously to help make a difference to these young people's lives. Because, as I say, children are the future.
GB News, the People's Channel. Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hey, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a smashing Sunday out there. Now the Premier League is back with Liverpool, Arsenal and Man United winning their opening games of the season, and we won't mention West Ham. But this afternoon, holders Man City head to Stamford Bridge for a huge clash against Chelsea. Joining me now is the wonderful sports supremo, Paul Coit. Hello, Paul. Thank you very much for joining us.
Are you OK after yesterday?
Oh, this was a mistake, right? Cancel him.
I'm the last person you want to speak to right now.
Because Tottenham does so well so often.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Scarlett. Yeah, well, we're unbeaten this season so far, Scarlett, I'll have you know. We haven't played yet, but it is tomorrow, but so far unbeaten.
I'll take it if I were you, Coity. So, Coity, I mean, what's your view of the season so far? Is it what we were expecting? I mean, is it, you know, It's stopped people rioting is one of the things we can say about it.
Well, there's that, yeah. I think I often expect there's going to be a few strange results of the first games of the season. I was hopeful for Ipswich, because Ipswich playing their first game in the Premier League in 22 years. You've got Liverpool that have got a new manager, and I'm thinking maybe that they've got a chance of turning over Liverpool. They've played really well at the start. It was the lunchtime game yesterday, but Liverpool were just too strong. Arne, who's the new manager, you know, he's instilling a new style of football. There he is. There's Arne. I was calling him Arne. I prefer Arnie, but he's Arne. Yesterday could have been more than 2, but Ipswich, it's going to be a tough season. They played well, but we all know it's going to be a very tough season for them. So how many games Ed Sheeran is actually going to sit in for until he starts thinking, you know what, I think I've had enough and I'm going to be off. We'll see. So already one game.
He was there, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, because you know he's now a shareholder. I think it's 1% of the club he's bought, which I don't know what that actually. I think for Ipswich, as it would have been 2 years ago, 1% would have been the price of a season ticket, I think. But things are different now. Things are different now. They've had 2 great seasons. They've moved up, so they're now in the Premier League. So I mean, everybody wants underdogs to do well. So Ipswich, baptism of fire, but I think they started pretty well, although it was a loss. They didn't play too badly at all.
Yeah, I mean, they did well. They performed well, didn't they, at the very least? So what do you make of this afternoon's game, Coity?
Right, well, Chelsea, I'm still, to be honest with you, I don't know how Chelsea fans feel about this, or I do know how some of them feel, but I think it was such a mistake to get rid of Mauricio Pochettino, because it's almost like the Todd Bowley, the owner, has come in and said, right, clean slate, we're going to give everybody a chance. So Graham Potter comes in, and that doesn't work out, and he fires him, so he's gone. And so then Mauricio Pochettino comes in. This takes some time, so it's not working well, and I think there's a lot of problems behind the scenes. I don't believe he was happy there anyway. But then towards the end of the season, they started getting results. And finally, and I know for a fact with him, it takes a while for players to get used to the start. And you've got to give managers time. You've just got to. And if you're going to start a new project, I know you've got to just really hold your nerve and say, look, we're going to stick with it. But then they decided to pull the rug from under his feet, and he's gone. This is when they come in sixth, just as things are turning. So now another new manager comes in. This is Enzo Maresca, who was at Leicester. So you've gone from kind of like a Premier League newbie, or someone I say newbie, someone who's quite inexperienced, to Pochettino, then to someone who is inexperienced, never managed in the Premier League. So with Chelsea, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. They're throwing the money around all over the place, but you can buy as many players as you want. But if they're not in the right place and they're not the right players, they don't get on, it doesn't go with the manager, it ain't going to work. But then you've got Manchester City, and we know all about them. 18 trophies since Pep Guardiola's been there. So I can't see anything else but a Manchester City win. But, you know, it's football, and anything could happen. You've got to take each game as it comes, and you could be sick as a parrot, as you were yesterday. But it's early days.
And why is football the one sport that has so many cliches involved in it?
I don't know, were they? I thought I was just being smart. Yeah, this is it. There's actually a book. I should bring it in tomorrow. There's a book of football cliches which is like this. So there's always plenty of, because it's been going on for so long.
Well,
I'm very excited.
I was very impressed. I look forward to that book. Thank you, Paul Coit, for bringing us up today on the footy. Right, so Benedict, Scarlett and Claire and Dawn Newsom on GB News, and there's lots more coming up. But first, we have to go to the weather, because that's really important. And it's the weekend, so you need to know what the weather's doing, don't you? Here it is.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News. Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Sunny spells continuing through Sunday with a couple of showers further north, but it does all change as we move into Monday with some rain arriving. And that's from these frontal systems out in the Atlantic. But first, we do have a ridge of high pressure firmly across at least the southern half of the UK. It's giving quite a settled afternoon. So plenty of sunshine around. There is some cloud around, but that'll generally start to melt away through this evening. But further north, we do start to see the beginning of these frontal systems, bringing some cloud and some rain across northwest Scotland. We also do see some drizzly showers moving into the southwest for southwest and parts of Wales as well. Cool though ahead of this, temperatures down into single figures in some eastern parts, and there may be a few mist and fog patches to start the day on Monday too. and fairly bright and sunny if you're starting the day in the far northeast of Scotland, but it is already going to be quite a cloudy picture with quite persistent rain. Some of this quite heavy at times, particularly in western parts as well. Northern Ireland seeing a very cloudy start to the day, rain already very close by and quite drizzly conditions. Wales and the southwest holding on to these very drizzly showers moving through this morning, but the central and southeastern half of England will be seeing sunshine to start the day on Monday and quite a pleasant morning. But it won't last too long. We're going to see this cloud and rain steadily moving westwards. We're going to see drizzle and rain ahead of it, and then heavy rain arriving into the afternoon. Strong southerly winds as well, particularly through the Irish Sea, where we could see some gales as well. But ahead of that, warm and humid air, and we could still get 26 degrees in the far east of England, but cooler underneath this rain at best into the teens. And we do have a rain warning out as well. There could be some very difficult driving conditions with the strong wind and spray on the road as we head through the evening for southwest Scotland. Unsettled then as we head through the rest of the week with some particularly wet and windy weather across the north on Wednesday and Thursday. That's all from me. Catch you later.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 18th of August. This is the weekend, literally the weekend, on GB News. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday out there. Now, the story of the day, front page of the Telegraph today, extreme misogyny will be treated as terrorism for the first time under plans to combat the radicalisation of young men online, with the government aiming to tackle violence against women and girls in the same way as Islamist and far-right extremism. We'll have all the latest on that story. And obviously the scale of the migrant crisis facing the new Labour government has been laid bare, as GB News confirms that more than 19,000 small boat migrants have now crossed the English Channel this year. Just what can Keir Starmer do to stop those boats? And as the Sussexes finish their semi-royal tour of Colombia, locals say Prince Harry should apologise for slavery. Do they have a point, though? I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. But this show is nothing without you and your views. And I know I say this a lot, but I am trying to read them out. But there's so many of you getting in touch, and some of them are quite fruity. Thank you very much for those. But it's very easy to join the conversation. I promise I'll read out as many as I possibly can. All you've got to do is go to gbnews.com/yoursave and join the conversation. And I'll read them out, I promise. Come in. Again, we're going to come to more of those soon, very soon. Right, now, keeping me company on today... Stop waffling, Dawn. Keeping me company on today's show is political commentator John Oxley, former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire, and journalist Claire Muldoon. Thank you all very much. John, especially, thank you very much for coming in and facing the girls. We have to have a fresh young man every hour. That's how it works here. Right, before we get stuck into today's story, here is the news with another lovely young man, Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you. Just after 2 o'clock, and the top story this hour, it is understood that dozens of people have been killed in Israeli airstrikes in both Gaza and Lebanon. Iran-backed Hezbollah has continued firing rockets in retaliation. It comes as Israel's Prime Minister has expressed cautious optimism about a ceasefire deal with Hamas, including for the release of hostages. The militant group isn't present for those talks, but a senior official has claimed there's been no progress in reaching a deal. Meanwhile, President Biden claims he is still remaining optimistic that an agreement is, he says, closer than ever. Well, there are concerns this afternoon that the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is deteriorating after a drone strike there. It caused an explosion just outside the site's protected area, although no casualties have been reported at this stage. The facility, the largest of its kind in Europe, has been occupied by Russian soldiers since early stages of the war, and it comes as Ukraine's incursion continues into Russian territory. This morning, former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major General Chip Chapman, told us British-donated equipment is helping Ukraine push back Vladimir Putin.
One of the things that the offensive does is establish momentum and initiative and gives more willingness to continue to support Ukraine, because what you can say previously is that they were losing slowly, and initially the provision of support equalised the battlefield, and now at least the momentum and initiative is with them in a tactical sense.
A biotech firm that produces an Mpox vaccine is ramping up production after a new strain has been found in Europe. The clade B1b strain has been confirmed in Sweden after first being detected in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's believed to be the most dangerous version found of the disease so far. Official figures reveal almost 500 people crossed the English Channel yesterday. At least 9 small boats made that journey, following 2 days of no reported migrant arrivals. But it does now bring the total number of migrants reaching UK waters so far this year to now 19,000 people. The Home Office insists it is creating a new border security command to tackle the problem. The Home Secretary is promising to crack down on people she says are pushing harmful and hateful beliefs in a new approach to fighting extremism. Yvette Cooper is launching a rapid sprint to look at how best to tackle the extremist threats, including rising radicalisation among young people online. That initiative follows, of course, the violent riots across England in recent weeks following the Southport stabbings, killing 3 girls. 460 people have now appeared in court, including more than 70 minors. Well, an update on news we've been bringing you this afternoon from Northern Ireland. We now know that the convicted murderer who was on the run has now been apprehended after an urgent manhunt. David McCord was sentenced to life in prison in 2004 for the murder of his girlfriend. Over the weekend, police have been working to trace his whereabouts, who was considered unlawfully at large, and they had issued an appeal for the prisoner to turn himself in. Police have now located him in the Belfast area and he has been returned to prison. A don't swim alert has been issued for a popular Devon seaside town because of a sewage leak. South West Water says it can't keep up with the spill caused by a burst pipe at a nearby pumping station in Exmouth. It has apologised, though residents say it's not good enough. They're insisting engineers are working round the clock to fix the problem. It comes after the regulator Ofwat announced water bills will rise by an average of £94 over the next 5 years to cover the cost of upgrading infrastructure. It's also been revealed that 3 water companies, though not including South West Water, are facing a combined fine of £168 million for failings, including over sewage treatment. Around 30 people have been left injured after a Ferris wheel caught fire at a music festival in Germany. You can see here pictures from the scene of that fire as the ride caught in flames. Festival organisers say 18 people are currently being treated in hospital following that blaze, though at this stage they say it's not known how it started. And the European Space Agency's JUICE spacecraft will perform a world-first lunar Earth flyby tomorrow night, marking a critical point in its journey to Jupiter. The manoeuvre will use the moon's gravity and then Earth's as natural brakes before slingshotting JUICE towards Venus, saving significant fuel. The high-risk operation is being guided by specialist flight controllers back here on Earth, and it could, they say, determine the mission's success, with even a minor error potentially ending the mission. JUICE, of course, equipped with UK-developed instruments, is on a 4.1 billion-mile trip to explore Jupiter's moons for signs of life. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Sam Francis, back with you for your next update at 2:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Right, let's get straight into today's story, shall we? Packed show, and it's going so fast. Now, extreme misogyny will be treated as terrorism for the first time under government plans to combat the radicalisation of young men online. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has ordered a review of Britain's counter-extremism strategy with the aim of tackling violence against women and girls in the same way as Islamist and far-right extremism. Joining me now from outside the Home Office is GB News reporter Ray Addison to bring us up to date on this story. Ray, hello, are you there? Ray, yes you are, there you are. Ray, I'm having trouble getting my head around this one, so can you explain exactly how this is going to work?
Well, it's an interesting one. It's got quite a few people scratching their heads, I think it's fair to say. They're calling this scheme Sprint, and it's being described by the Home Secretary as a strategic reset on how the government tackles hateful or harmful activity. Now, that could be online, it could be comments made in the workplace, it could be something that you've heard while you sat in a cafe or walking down the street. But it's basically anything that promotes violence or undermines democracy. Now, the Home Office has been very keen to stress that it's going to be looking at issues such as Islamist and far-right extremism in the UK. But what has kind of caught people's attention is this idea of using terrorism resources to clamp down on extreme misogyny. Now, of course, misogyny being the dislike, contempt or prejudice against women and girls. And again, that could be something that's been commented online, or it could be something that's been said in the classroom by your child. And under this new scheme, what we could see, and what we may well see, is teachers being legally required to report to the government's Prevent scheme, that of course being the scheme that normally deals with extreme terrorism or potential people involved in terrorism or supporting terrorism. They could report your child to Prevent if they say something that is deemed to be misogyny. So a lot of the members of the public, obviously viewers and listeners to our channel, channels saying, well, hold on a minute, who decides what is extreme? Who defines whether something has been misogynistic? And has the UK not got enough already dealing with terror threats, genuine terror threats with a risk to life, rather than policing people who may post a comment online and using resources for that? Now, it shouldn't be a surprise that this is happening. It was part of the Labour manifesto when they were running for election, and Cooper has been very keen to point out that there hasn't been an up-to-date countering extremism strategy from the government since 2015. So she believes that this needs to be brought in, and we will see where it goes.
Ray Addison, thank you very much. That's Ray bringing us today on the new misogyny as terrorism, idea by the government, basically. Now, obviously, we all agree that this needs to happen, right? We've seen appalling incidents of violence against women and girls recently, and we all know the ones we're talking about. And it is a fact that a woman in this country is killed by a man on average every 3 days. So something needs to be done. But is this the right way of tackling it? I'm going to come to John Oxley, political commentator on this one, as the man in the studio at the moment. What do you make of this as a man? I mean, you know, misogyny, extreme misogyny, I'm not even quite sure what that actually even means, as terrorism?
I find it very difficult. I mean, I can see absolutely the risk and the danger we have there, but I'm not sure how much of this is an ideology in the same way being, you know, a radical Islamist is, or in the same way being radically on the far right. You know, I think there are a lot of men who are a danger to women, but I'm not sure how much that is driven by ideas and how much of more a personality thing they are, people who are prone to violence. And actually, we see a lot of overlap. You know, a lot of the people we see arrested for Islamic terrorism, for example, or far-right terrorism, have a history of violence against women. And I think it's more often that just violent men are prone to attack women for various reasons, and there's not really as much something coherent and ideology behind it. And so that makes it quite hard to tackle by putting it in this category.
I mean, if that could be used of the phrase hateful beliefs, I mean, is this sort of like the government monitoring our thoughts?
Potentially, and again, we've had this with all sorts of same issues of extremism. You know, where do we draw the lines? You know, people are entitled to believe all sorts of things we disagree with. When they get to the point of promoting violence, encouraging violence, that's obviously wrong. But how much are we going to go behind that? And you know, when we look at these, you know, when you say stupid things in class, you know, I've been a 15-year-old boy in a classroom of teenagers, and you do say grotty things about girls, but you grow out of it, hopefully. And you know, reporting someone for saying stupid things is quite uneasy when, you know, 99% of the time that's not going to lead to violence. It's just someone being a, you know, cocky little Ike, and you know, they learn their lessons as they grow up.
That's a really important point, actually, isn't it, Scarlett? I mean, it's like, you know, as if teachers haven't got enough on their plates and actually with doing their job of teaching, they now have to spy on. We all know what teenage boys can be like.
They don't. They don't. This is not what this is about. This is about saying that actually there is a real problem with male violence. And you're right, a lot of people who are accused of far-right and Islamic crimes, violent crimes, are often wife beaters and have got to think. This is not about policing the classroom, but there is a problem in some classrooms because of people like Andrew Tate, who is a serious misogynist. And, I mean, he is, at the moment in Romania, being accused of trafficking women. So, I mean, we're talking about not a nice person. And that actually women teachers find it very, very difficult dealing with the boys because they say, what do you know? You don't know anything. I don't know anything. But that isn't a police matter. What this is saying is, I mean, for a start, the whole thing about prevent, which is about teachers actually saying, oh, I'm worried that I've got a sort of literally a 10-year-old, you know, Islamic radical in my classroom, or a right-wing radical, which I really don't think should be happening. And it's something that went wrong because what it began was actually the state and the Muslims getting together to try and stop people from going to Syria. That's how it started, and then it got out of control. So it's not about saying, oh, you know, you're a terrorist if you say anything against women, but it is saying this is a real problem. That, you know, the hatred against women has gone up, and what are we going to do about it?
Interesting you mentioned the Islam side of this, because a lot of you are getting in touch, and, you know, please do. It's very interesting what you've got to say on this, Claire. And this is a message from Nick. This is one example I'm picking out here. Will Yvette Cooper target the religion of Islam with her misogynist terrorism act? There does seem to be a problem with women within that culture. What do you make to that sort of comment?
Well, I mean, Nick, thanks for watching, and you know that's clearly an important issue for Nick. And you know, I would actually go deeper than that. I would say Sharia law that is operated in this country. I have issues with it, and I think we all should be having issues with it and be monitoring of it. I don't like the police state. I don't like the nanny state. I don't like the state being able to police us in terms of what we're thinking, what we're posting, or anything like that. I think it's gone beyond parody now. We know that crimes against women on public transport have gone up 50%.
We had the report
that was
last
the report
week.
was
Yes.
on that was last week.
Yeah.
So women really are quite perilous, and I would say sometimes actually a loss in society. And where have we gone then? Where has feminism actually got us? Where has it helped us? Where has it underpinned us? Because clearly there is a need. We've got women dying at the hands of violent males, often people that they know, often ex-partners or their partners, every 3 days. We're supposed to be a civilised country, for heaven's sake, and yet we're at risk.
Can I just ask what you mean by where has feminism got us?
Yeah.
Are you saying that feminism has got us to this situation where there is that anger against women?
Has feminism actually demasculated men?
John? Sorry, for the whole of mankind, obviously. But, I mean, it's kind of got a point.
I think what we have seen, I think not so much with feminism as such, but with a lot of the changes, you know, in terms of the economy, in terms of jobs over the last 30 or 40 years that have coincided with a lot of development of women's rights. I think you have had a changing role for men, but I think most people and most feminists would argue that, you know, feminism is as much about liberating the role for men and giving them more flexibility.
There's nothing worse than a man saying, "Oh, I'm more of a feminist than you are." Come on.
That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is...
I didn't say that John was saying that. I'm just saying in general, and the fact that some men don't want to offer their seat to women on tubes or public transport.
But the thing I would say as well, actually, just picking up, you know, one of the things we don't bring into this discussion quite often when we talk about male violence is men are far more frequently the victims of male violence than women are. You know, something like 3 times as many men are murdered than women every year, and it is almost exclusively by men. And so when we look at the role of violence in society, yes, there is a very clear men committing violence against women problem, and we need to solve that. But there is also a bigger problem of just violent men, and that's something that has to be tackled as part of this.
Actually, you're right. I mean, as the mother of both, I was much more worried about when my son was out, that he would get tied up into something. And, you know, we lived in central London, and that I didn't feel he was always sensible. I mean, because he was young, right? Whereas my daughter, it was straightforward. You know, would she be attacked on the street? Unlikely. Would a young man be attacked on the street? More likely. And so actually what we are talking about violent men, and we're also talking about the problem of young men, particularly sort of between 14 and 25, and how I mean, you know, they need youth clubs. They need, I mean, they need intervention to give them something. And like you, I mean, I don't blame feminism. I think feminism...
I was going to say, Scott, as a feminist, I was going to ask you...
No, I think, you know, I mean, I think what feminism has meant that actually men can look after their children much better. You have a much more caring side. I mean, I think the problem of emasculating is unemployment, is losing the jobs that give them. I mean, there's that side. But I mean, what we need is we need interventions into young men because that's where it's particularly dangerous.
It's very interesting, going back to that point, and this is AK just messaging, chivalry is dead when it comes to ladies first nowadays. I'm old school, but you risk abuse giving up your seat to woke young student girls. So there is a lot of anger out there.
I get given seats on the tube an awful lot, and I'm always very grateful. For everybody, just give me a seat.
Mostly women give up their seats for me, which is interesting. Right, we've run out of time, but thank you. Please do keep your messages coming in. It's a huge debate. Lots of you have got to say, and I will get to more of them as soon as I can. Now, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please go to our website, which is at gbnews.com. Now, I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News. It's the weekend, indeed, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. GB News confirms more than 19,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year. We'll be hearing from our Home and Security Editor on that story. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you very soon.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, almost 70% of 18 to 25-year-olds, we don't know whether that's men or women, but they say that women shouldn't breastfeed in public. 19% would even go as far as labelling it disgusting.
Well, only a quarter of Brits say that women shouldn't have to cover up when they're breastfeeding. So clearly there is a big debate here and one to get to the bottom of. And to do so, we're joined by parenting journalist Annette Kellu. Really good to see you this morning, Annette.
Really good to see you.
Why is this stigma still existing in our society?
I think we've got a case here going on of double standards. I don't know about you, but I live near a park, OK? One little hint of sun, the men get completely naked. Honestly, you've never seen anything like it. The bodies are out, all different shapes and sizes. So why is it not OK for a woman to feed her baby? You know, we've got this whole thing. They're OK to be naked doing what they want. Why can't a woman just feed her baby? Why is it shameful in 2024? And it's interesting what you say about the 18 to 25-year-olds, because I really want to know, are they men or women? Because I feel like they'd be men.
I was going to say, have you got a hunch? Have you got a suspicion?
Yes, I have. And I think as well, they're thinking of them as sexy time, you know? And I feel like they're not... Well, maybe that's because they're bombarded with images and they see things like that they're seeing it in that context. But it's really not. It's feeding the baby. It's simple. Shouldn't be shameful.
But do you think for men it's like they can't see the difference? There's so much porn in society, isn't there, that the breasts are sexualised and seen as this sexual object and not actually for their main primary purpose, which is actually feeding a child.
Immediate association.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they can't.
And you can't see that they could have two functions.
Absolutely. And to them as well, I feel like they see it, and on the other side of it, they think like, ooh, mummy, and that brings up weird feelings for them, maybe.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday, we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. You've got a nice cuppa in front of you, or maybe even a glass of wine. It's a Sunday afternoon, after all. Now, and I'm not at all looking at the direction of one of my panellists. It's a Sunday. Come on. Now, after a busy day on the channel yesterday, with at least 9 small boats carrying 450 migrants making the perilous journey, that makes it more than 5,500 illegal migrants since Labour came to power 6 weeks ago, and more than 19,000 this year. How's that smashing those gangs going, eh? Home and Security editor Mark White breaks down what all this means for us.
There are probably a slightly fewer coming across than we would have expected now that we're in the height of summer, but there have been some days where it's been a bit windy in the channel, including this week. So I was in Dover earlier in the week on the cliff top there reporting on another milestone that 5,000 migrants had crossed the channel illegally since Labour came to power. And then we had 2 or 3 days of windy weather, and it's only now this weekend that things have calmed down enough to allow more boats to come. And sure enough, we had just after 11 o'clock this morning the Border Force vessel Ranger coming in with 50-odd migrants. It returned again with another 40 migrants. Then the Border Force vessel Defender was in as well with 135 migrants on board, and so it continued throughout the day, with our producer down in Dover estimating that at least 9 small boats came into UK waters carrying more than 450 people, taking the total for the year to now more than 19,000, and of course that milestone as well to 5,500 since Labour came to power, promising to smash the gangs. They scrapped the Rwanda deal on the first day in office. It was, according to Sir Keir Starmer, a gimmick. Instead, what he wants to do is go after the people smugglers. But that's going to take some time. They haven't even managed to appoint a new senior officer in charge of this new Border Security Command, and that's what, over 6 weeks since Labour came to power. So they've got some way to go to achieve this goal of supposedly smashing the gangs. And while they don't do that, then all of the time when the weather improves, we'll get boat after boatload coming to the UK.
Thank you very much, Mark. Sobering stuff, isn't it? Now, let's see what my panel make of this. Former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and journalist Claire Muldoon are still with me. The young man, we got rid of him. He ran screaming out the studio. We had that effect on people. Now, OK, so we've just heard what Mark was saying there. I mean, smashing the gangs. I mean, Labour came in talking tough. They were going to raid nail bars, I think, at one point. Don't see much of that going on. Doesn't seem to be working so far. Claire, what do you make of this?
Well, the other worrying fact is the fact the government were wanting to set up a new Border Security Command. But are the Border Security officers not going on strike soon?
Very possibly.
You know, so they seem to be running before they can walk. Contrary to what Scarlett said during Mark's report there, I had heard that the Rwanda policy was actually, it did work in terms of keeping people away. It did act as a deterrent.
It seemed to act as a deterrent in Ireland. There was some...
And now the word is that it's not that because it's been scrapped, everyone thinks they're safe just still to come. And I'd also be interested, and I'd really quite like to know the percentage increase on those people coming over in the boats year on year. I don't think that's a statistic that we've heard, or indeed that we have. Because, I mean, it's all bluster at the moment. Yes, 19,000 people so far this year have come over, but is that increased on the year? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
But
I think it
without
has increased.
Clear and concise guidelines and guidance from the government, it's going to be rampant.
Scarlett, this is something people do care about and keep their messages coming in.
They do care about, and what we should be doing is yes, you can do border command and try and stop people, but the real thing that we should be processing people. I mean, I say this over and over again, is that we are spending £8 million a day putting people up in hotels. You know, 10 years ago, right, people would be processed within a month. And they would complain if they were left for 6 weeks. We're now talking years.
But we didn't have as many coming over then, did we? That's the thing, it's numbers.
No, because instead of spending the money on hotels, we should be spending it on people being processed. I mean, that's what... You just get in more people, and if they know they're going to be sent back, if they're just migrants, then they won't come. The Albanians started coming over. We heard that there were 40% of the people in the boats were Albanians. A deal was done with Albania. We don't get Albanians anymore. Albanians know they go straight back. And so what you have to do is you have to be really, really tough, and you have to say, we will take refugees, we will not take economic migrants.
OK. I mean, I'm glad that that sounds all plausible, and it sounds fantastic, and I wish that did happen. But the reality is, it's not. This is the modern-day slave trade. There's a huge business model out there. People are buying their way into this country, and I would far rather they didn't. I would far rather the message was, look, please don't come. This is not, the grass is not greener here. We're practically at the max in terms of our own public infrastructure. We can't cope with any more. We can't deal with any more, and it's costing us too much money at the expense of British citizens, and it truly is.
And a lot of you are saying that as well. This is a message from Gary. Thank you. Good afternoon. Let's stop talking about a UK border force. We have a border water taxi service which only operates a one-way journey, France to Dover. More chance of Shogo running at next year's Derby than Labour stopping the boats.
Well, I mean, look, if you have proper processing so that people know they're going to be sent back, then they stop coming. The reason that they're coming is because nothing happens. They come over, right? And they were coming over with Rwanda. And the strangest thing was I had a young refugee turn up at my house who was going to be sent to Rwanda, and she was in Jarlsberg, and they got her bail, and she came to me. She was a Christian whose parents were already in jail in Eritrea. She moved to Ethiopia with her aunt. They then started jailing Christians in Ethiopia. I mean, she was a 22-year-old classic refugee, right? But actually, we shouldn't have been going for her. We should have been going for these people who are just economic migrants. And until that message is sent out, and until people are being processed, nothing happens.
Do you think the Rwanda scheme would have put her off making the journey across?
No, I mean, she just felt she was unlucky that she was in a hostel in Portsmouth, and they put her in Jarlsberg and said, we're going to send you on the first flight to Rwanda. And you just think, what are they doing, sending somebody who is a classic refugee who was in fear of persecution, when we know we've got lots of people in the hostels and in the hotels who are economic migrants who are not being processed.
The problem we've got here, Claire, is that all the solutions that Labour should be doing, and no one's disagree that we should be processing genuine refugees fairly, take time.
Well, it does. It takes time, and it also takes manpower. And the civil service at the moment is broken because so many of them are working from home. Look at the published statistics.
Exactly what Fred has just said, yeah.
But hold on, they're not working from home if they're assessing migrants. I mean, the people who are working from home are the people...
There's no one assessing migrants at the moment, it would appear, and that's what has to begin to happen.
And that's what has to begin to happen. I mean, that's what we need. We need lots and lots more people. We need to take the money from the hotels and actually put them into processing.
Unfortunately, ladies, we have run out of time on that debate as well. But please do keep your messages coming. Lots of very important points, and I will read them out as soon as I can. I'm Dawn Neeson for GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show, including why are young people feeling more isolated than older people? Comes as a new report shows a whopping 70% of people aged 18 to 24 have reported feeling lonely. But first, here's the news with Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you, and very good afternoon to you. Just after 2:30, the top story this hour. It is understood that at least 24 people have now been killed in Israeli airstrikes in Gaza overnight, including some women and children. It comes as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is cautiously optimistic about a potential ceasefire. And the latest line from Reuters news agency this afternoon from the Israeli Prime Minister's office saying they are prepared to be flexible about some things in their negotiations with Hamas. However, a senior Hamas representative says at this stage any deal is still way off. In Ukraine, safety at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is deteriorating, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency. An explosive detonated just outside of the site's protected area, which has been occupied by Russian soldiers since the early stages of the war there. Official figures show 9 migrant boats were brought ashore from the English Channel yesterday, carrying almost 500 people. Hundreds more have made the crossing this week, bringing the total number reaching UK waters so far this year to 19,000. The Home Secretary is launching a major crackdown on extremism, vowing to close gaps that leave the UK, she says, exposed to dangerous ideologies. Following recent riots and the Southport stabbings, with over 460 people now in court, Yvette Cooper says the Home Office are making a rapid sprint to map out strategies to fight radicalisation. In Devon, a don't swim alert has been issued for Exmouth Beach, after South West Water admitted it was struggling to contain a sewage leak. The firm has apologised for a burst pipe and insists engineers are working round the clock to fix the problem. There are fears a new strain of Mpox is already in the UK after emerging first in Africa. The clade 1b strain has been confirmed in Sweden and is thought to be the most dangerous so far. Symptoms include a fever and a painful rash, which produces blisters. And Europe's JUICE spacecraft will attempt a world first tomorrow night, flying by the Moon and Earth in a daring double gravity manoeuvre. The move will slingshot JUICE towards Jupiter, saving vital fuel for its 4.1 billion-mile mission to search for signs of life. JUICE, carrying UK-built instruments, will pass over Southeast Asia and the Pacific, offering stargazers a rare chance to spot it. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Sam Francis. Sophia Wensler will be here for your next update at 3 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A couple of showers around today, but actually lots of sunshine, and it will be dry for much of the UK. And that's because we have high pressure over the Azores, and that'll be extending a ridge across the southern half of the UK, and that'll be acting to settle down the weather, killing off most of those showers, and it'll be a mostly fine afternoon. There will be a couple of showers around, mainly for the northwest of England and certainly for the west of Scotland, but actually lots of the UK seeing plenty of sunny spells and central parts seeing more sunshine than we saw yesterday. Further north, though, we do still have this keen westerly breeze pushing into western Scotland, and with temperatures there in the mid-teens still feeling quite chilly, but further south, 24, 25 is a top temperature and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine too. A fairly fine afternoon for much of the southern half of the UK, but that rain will continue to push into western Scotland. Some sunshine, though, across eastern Scotland, and it will be still that wind continuing on through the western coasts. Northern Ireland staying largely dry, and over the high ground of northwest England there still will be some drizzly outbreaks. But again, lots of evening sunshine for Wales and much of the south. We start to get some drizzly showers moving into the southwest later on into the evening. But for most of the country, we do have a largely clear night, and we've got lots of clear spells. Rain and drizzle beginning to move into the northwest of Scotland, and some drizzly showers moving into the southwest and parts of Wales as well. Cool, though, ahead of this cloud. Temperatures down into single figures in some eastern parts, with a few mist and fog patches that will burn away quickly during the morning. But the main feature, we've got this cloud and rain moving in from the west, a strong southerly breeze picking up through the Irish Sea, and we'll start to see heavy rain arriving from early afternoon, spreading into particularly parts of southwest Scotland. Temperatures will be at the best mid to high teens under this cloud and rain and feeling quite chilly. Warm still, though, in the southeast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one
will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a fantastic Sunday out there. Now, there is plenty more coming up on today's show, but before that, Nana, A Queer Show is on at 3 o'clock, and you won't want to miss it because Nana is here to tell us now what she's got coming up. Nana, hello. Going to be a cracker as usual.
Well, this is, you know, we're all talking about it. A lot of people are talking about it. This whole Yvette Cooper's plan, she's talking about prevent and extreme misogyny should be treated like terrorism. So I'm going to be asking whether you think that is a bit 1984-ish, if you know what I mean. Who decides how far the extreme is? And could it catch normal people just doing normal things out? I mean, what happens if you say something, you know, what if you believe that a man cannot be a woman and when a woman cannot be a man? Where do we stand with all of that? Plus, we'll be looking at Labour's approach to the small boat crisis. 19,000 people have crossed the Channel. I think at least almost 4,500 of those have been in the last month or so since Keir Starmer took over. So we're asking, do you think their approach is going to work? Plus, we're looking at some of their policies as to whether you think they're a false economy. So, for example, the fact that the winter fuel allowance is likely to be removed, but then could it push pensioners into going for another support package, which could then end up costing the government more? Same thing with VAT on private schools. If people leave all the private schools, then they won't make the 1.7 billion. So we're asking about some of their policies as to whether they're false economy. And very quickly, I've got an incredible guest, Emma Webber, will be live talking to me at just after 5 o'clock about her views on some of the moves that have been put forward to try and counter knife crime. That's coming up.
Brilliant show. Thank you very much. Now, that's happening at 3 o'clock straight after this show. Now, a new report shows young people are more likely to feel lonely than older people. We normally think it's the other way around, don't we? But evidently it's not. 70% of people aged 18 to 24 have reported feeling lonely, compared to 32% of the over 75s. So we're asking, why are young people feeling more isolated? Joining me now is former member of the Youth Parliament, Zara Khan. Zara, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Zara, this is a new report by the Centre for Social Justice. 70% of people aged 18 to 24 admit to feeling lonely at least some of the time. What do you think the reasons are for this?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this report really does hit home to me. When I read it, I just basically thought back to the lockdown that we faced during COVID. And I'm just going to speak from a personal point of view. When the schools closed, that was a real struggle for many young people like myself, because, you know, our whole lives changed. We had to, you know, stay away from that face-to-face social interaction that we should be having growing up as young people. We became so reliant on using technology, and I feel like we just became so used to just sort of interacting behind a screen, which just makes it made it so much harder to go back to real life and having that face-to-face interaction And I still feel like it's something that we all struggle with when I speak with my peers. And that was really something that I had to campaign about when I was a youth MP. We looked at how can we, you know, deliver better resources to students in schools. And I really don't feel like there was enough support put in place for young people to really acknowledge this issue. So I am quite surprised that this report is only coming out now.
Zara, just quickly, researchers are suggesting that older people are partially less likely to feel lonely because they engage more, actually physically talking to other people, spending more time with other people. You know, I get what happened during the pandemic and lockdown, but the amount of time, and I don't mean to sound patronising, but the amount of time young people spend on their phones and on social media, do you think that's something to do with it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think technology can be such a powerful and dangerous tool. Whilst it helps us to stay connected with people, you can easily become addicted. I used to use social media a lot, and I feel like that really led to my loneliness because, as I say, we became so reliant on just hiding behind a screen. We didn't know that this was the way, to go out and speak to people face to face. So it's still something that I and my peers still struggle with, having those direct face-to-face conversations with people. Even like when you're going to a job interview, everything is like you're having that Zoom call.
Of course.
I just feel like society has not really encouraged people to go, and meet people in person now. When we're talking about older people, I feel like, technology was not really something that they had grown up with. So I feel like maybe they are more at an advantage now with their social skills because they have that support network already put in place that young people may not have had when they were growing up. So it just makes it even harder for us to reach out.
OK, Zara, thank you very much. That's Zara Khan there joining us to talk about why younger people are feeling more lonely than older. Thank you very much, Zara. Claire, I'm going to come to you first on this one. When I had this conversation with my mum, who's in her 80s earlier on, she goes, well, yeah, OK, older people, we do feel lonely, but we don't complain about it as much.
Yeah, I could believe that.
Do you think
absolutely?
That's an element of
and also, the older we get, the actual more work we've actually done. So I would say to these young Gen Zers, forget about your oat milk, forget about swiping right or swiping left. What's making you feel uncomfortable or feel lonely is yourself. You need to get over yourself, get a job, get out there, stop working from home, stop complaining, and just get on with it. Interact with people, even if it's just the bus driver or whatever. When you get on the bus, say good morning. I mean, you need to make the effort. It's not all me,
Interesting. You just look at my mum.
Yeah,
in the nicest possible way to both of you.
But look, you've got the iPhone, the iMac. What does it all begin with? I. It's so person-centric at the moment for these young Gen Zers.
Very strong words. Scarlett?
No, I think it's really tough being young.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Scarlett.
I think... So I remember thinking, once I'd got through school, everything would be fine. And then you get into the real world and actually nothing changes, right?
No, that's true.
And it's not. And it is difficult. And you feel that you should be having lots of friends, you should be going out, you should be doing all of this, and maybe it's not quite happening. So I do understand the loneliness. I think, that it's about learning about long friendship and everything. Whereas when you're older, you've got there. And of course, it's terrible. I mean, what's terrible? And young people are getting over their first heartbreak, which is ghastly. I mean, God, I remember mine. But the thing about older people is they're getting over the death of their spouse, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's really, really tough. So it's tough for both of them, right? But I think to say that it's easy for young is just wrong.
OK, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Very strong opinions from our panellists. What do you think? Who do you agree with here? I'm Dawn Neeson, GB News. And next up, it's Showbiz with the lovely Danielle Mason. We'll be getting the latest from around the world, so don't go too far. We'll see you very soon.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a very difficult issue, this, right? As far as we know, the boxer with male chromosomes was born with female genitalia.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite simple. Sex in humans is binary and immutable because we are mammals. And there is a minority of people who have disorders of sexual development, and that can affect a person's reproductive organs. But these people are male or female. And yesterday, what we witnessed was basically just glorified male violence against women and girls. The difference is, I mean, that happens every day all over the world. And the difference is that in every other circumstance, we consider beating up women to be wrong, but it was deemed acceptable by those at the IOC because they're claiming that it's sport, but it's not. It's violence and it's wrong.
Peter, Lottie's right, isn't she, that we've been talking a lot recently about violence against women and girls, and regardless of whether this person is intersex or transgender, they have male chromosomes. That means they have a very, very distinct biological advantage that could actually be fatal to a female athlete competing against them.
Well, of course, sport does need to be fair, and we do need to examine this case very thoroughly. There are reports that the boxer, Iman Khalif, was born a biological woman. She is not transgender. She is not non-binary. She is not intersex. She may have elevated levels of testosterone, but that's entirely natural. It's beyond her control. It's the way she was born. And that is why the International Olympic Committee has said that she falls within the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend. I didn't have time to thank them. Scarlett Maguire and Claire Muldoon, who've been with me the whole show. I've got rid of them now, so it's safe to watch. But they were great panellists, weren't they? But we have another wonderful panel with me, and this one is Daniel Mason with all your showbiz news. I feel like we need a drum roll for you there, Daniel. Daniel, what do you want to start with? Well, the story that everyone is talking about, and I'm completely befuddled by it, Molly May and Tommy.
Yeah, we have to talk about Molly May and Tommy Fury, because it's just all over the news at the moment,
Yes.
Dawn. It's everywhere.
Yes.
And I think the reason for this is because it's such an endearing story. You've got a girl from a middle-class family here that's got with a travelling boy from the traveller background.
Both very good-looking people, I know that
Beautiful
much.
people, 25 years old. They've got 9 million in the bank. I'm putting them that they're the new Posh and Becks, or with the royal stance, we were saying that they were maybe a bit like, their stories a bit like Diana and Charles back in the day. Yes, like linked up to that.
People actually thought that?
Yes, like they've got the same similar kind of story going on. So just giving you a quick update on what I've been reading and looking into is...
Are they going to get back together?
Personally, I think that they will get back together, but it's just been... New reports have shown that there's this Danish girl that he met in a nightclub and he was seen kissing her.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. And people were filming it, and apparently security's been seen making people delete it out of the phone. Then there's been reports now that the next day that they met up at a beach bar and somebody sent the footage to Molly May, allegedly. So Molly May literally finished the relationship when he was on the flight back, like within an hour she put the statement up. But I think, you know, give it 6 months, maybe there could be a big turnaround here. They might get back together. This is what everyone's talking about.
Because they've got a little girl as well, haven't they?
They've got a little girl, Bambi, and Tommy's been seen taking the little girl for ice cream, so he's still seeing his daughter, and the family's all rallying round Molly May, but she has chucked him out their mansion, so yeah.
It's a different world. What else is going on Planet Showbiz?
So we've got Strictly Come Dancing, said to be one of the most costly shows ever due to all the ongoings that I've reported on with you previously. Yes. Since the accusations and departures of Giovanni and Graziana, they've put in, apparently that BBC have spent 200,000, but I think that that's probably more money that they've spent putting in chaperones and producers that are now looking after the contestants' needs and things like that. It's been announced, which I just picked my 5 favourites out that I like. So Pete Wicks is joining the show. Obviously, we know him through Towie, and he's obviously best mates with Sarah McDermott, who was, going through all the accusations with Giovanni. We've got Jamie Bothwick, EastEnders, Nick Knowles, who's a presenter, Shane Ward, the X Factor winner, Toya Wilcox, and there's many more.
Brilliant, thank you very much. A very brief update, Daniel Mason, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. I've been Dawn Neeson, this is GB News. Nana's up next, don't go too far. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Sunny spells continuing through Sunday with a couple of showers further north, but it does all change as we move into Monday with some rain arriving. And that's from these frontal systems out in the Atlantic. But first, we do have a ridge of high pressure firmly across at least the southern half of the UK. It's even quite a settled afternoon. So plenty of sunshine around. There is some cloud around, but that'll generally start to melt away through this evening. But further north, we do start to see the beginning of these frontal systems, bringing some cloud and some rain across northwest Scotland. We also do see some drizzly showers moving into the southwest for southwest and parts of Wales as well. Cool though ahead of this, temperatures down into single figures in some eastern parts, and there may be a few mist and fog patches